The double standards I'm seeing surrounding Liverpool are absolutely astronomical. And I believe this is every football fan who wants to tweet, make TikToks, YouTube content, who wants to be a sort of part of the fan media community should be calling this kind of nonsense out. And it doesn't matter who you support. I'm a Manchester United fan. I'm calling this out because the double standard from the mainstream media makes me sick. I've called this out for many a year when it comes to other clubs, Man United, Arsenal, etc. And we've got to do the same here for Liverpool, because for me, this is an absolute outrage, what I've just listened to. I'm going to tell you why, once we've listened to it, why I think it's so outrageous. So bear with me, but hit the like button, subscribe, get the bell notification button turned on, but also share this stream on your Twitter feed, in your groups, your Liverpool groups, your, whatever clubs you support. You must have group chats, Reddits, whatever it may be. Get that shared for us right now. But let's take a little listen. Let me grab my earphones as well, actually, so I can hear what's being said. But for me, I was a little taken aback by this, and I want to share it with you. Take a little listen.
The narrative, Simon, was that Liverpool were going to walk away. At least that was the narrative online on X, that Liverpool were going to make this bid. All of a sudden, Newcastle reject it, and then Liverpool walk away. Who's in the strongest position here? Liverpool.
Newcastle hold his registration. And if Newcastle are prepared to be bold, and I think that they possibly will be until Liverpool at some point, well, they've told them we're not accepting 110 million quid. Nobody. If someone knocks on your door and says that they want to buy your house, you don't accept their first offer, do you? Unless it's something really ridiculous. And obviously Newcastle don't think 110 million pounds for one of the best centre forwards in world football, in a position that's a real dearth of opportunity to get better centre forwards. I want Newcastle to make Liverpool pay as much as they possibly can.
Again, one of my biggest issues with the mainstream media is the way they fail to educate football fans properly. It frustrates the living daylights out of me. I understand the scenario of buying someone's house, but I was called out for this a while ago on a very similar scenario where someone said to me, Terry, and they were right, and it's how you get educated by a proper, intelligent challenge. Terry, you can't compare it to selling a house. I'm like, okay, explain. So I'm going to explain to you the way this person did to me, but with the Isak example. Yes, you don't maybe accept the first offer that comes your way, but typically speaking, your house here in the UK, if it's worth £500,000 today, in a year's time, it's typically going to be worth the same, normally a little bit more, in a bad year, slightly less. Alexander Isak in a year's time, as his contract runs down, will be worth less money, where in 3 years' time, he'll be worth absolutely zero to Newcastle United as an asset to sell. The problem with using the house as the example of buying and selling a player is your house is typically not a depreciating asset that doesn't lose its value, where a football player does. You'd be better off using the example of buying a car. If you have a car that today is worth £50,000 and somebody offers you £45,000 for it, in a year's time, it's going to be worth £35,000. You might still try and push towards that 50, but you do know at some point that car is going to devalue. You want as much money as possible because you want to buy a better car, or you want a downsize, but you don't want to lose too much money. That would be a better example. It really would. The next element, when he makes it the beginning part, when he makes it sound like Liverpool have no power. Newcastle hold his registration; they can do what they want. But that would be ridiculous to keep a player at the club that doesn't want to be there when the relationship is broken down. In the reality of football, players do hold a lot of power. So don't lie to the millions of listeners that Newcastle have all the power here. It doesn't work in that way. Very disingenuous from Simon Jordan.
When people get all offended and all the Liverpool fans start jumping up and down because it's their football club you're talking about, they have unsettled the player. One way or another, they've done it, and they've got form on it. They did it with Virgil van Dijk. So let's not get around the fact that the matter they're using their influence one way or another. Make them pay whatever you want them to pay, to a point where the player has to turn around and say to the club, right, come on now. You've got to be realistic. If they get to 130, 140 million quid, which is enormous amounts of money, we're talking about preposterous amounts of money, but this is the market that we're in, then the player can have the right to possibly turn around and say, all I want to do is leave. I am entitled to leave if I want to.
See, what's really interesting about this is that in the very next breath, he speaks about, in the first instance, his words were, I want Liverpool to have to pay as much as possible. I want Newcastle to stripe them up and get as much money as possible. Then he speaks how about it's ludicrous money. And this is what I mean by the hypocrisy that I said at the beginning. If you watch TalkSport enough, if you listen to Simon Jordan enough, the amount of times he bemoans the amount of money being spent in football, but in this particular instance to shit on Liverpool, in this particular instance to attack Liverpool, he's yielding on that principle that he is pushed out on such a regular basis to get as much money as possible, get it done, get it over the line. My question to Simon is, why suddenly? Why suddenly are you changing your view? Are you changing your perspective? And on the unsettling nonsense, again, the hypocrisy stinks. Where are the videos? Where is the content from TalkSport? Where is the breakdown from the biggest sports broadcaster in Europe, one of the biggest in the world? Where is the breakdown on Newcastle United unsettling Wissa? Where is it? Why doesn't that exist? As an example, by the way, I'm not having a go at Newcastle. All is fair in that regard. But why is it Liverpool are being chastised for unsettling Alexander Isak, but Newcastle, there's no long feature-length segments being pushed out across social media by TalkSport on that. Why? Break that down for me. Why? Why in this instance is it being done? You've got to ask yourself that question. Disgraceful.
And I'm entitled to move on to another football club that I think is better for my future, and you're just holding it back now by being ridiculous. But I don't think you take Liverpool's offer and go, oh, gee, thanks very much. When can we have it?
You've managed various clubs. Martin, when do you tell your chairman, okay, I need to know now, before I start the first game of the season, who my starting 11 is going to be? Like, surely there's a cut-off point for a manager as well to when you know this is my best 11, I need to keep my star man.
Well, let's just go back a couple of stages. First of all, if you're talking about the deal, if you're talking about Liverpool obviously through his agent, the player's agent would have said to them, listen, we're in for you big time. Now, Liverpool will know what Newcastle, to a fair degree, within £10 million, I think they would know what they have to pay. If Liverpool have made stipulations and saying this is dependent on a number of players leaving the football club, fine. But if they have, as Simon said, left the player high and dry, not that I'm into worrying about whether the player's left high and dry or not, because behaviour hasn't been all that brilliant, but at the end of it all, if they've said something...
And this is another element that I get so frustrated with. Why do we care so much about the player? Why do we care about the player's behaviour and not our club's? There are reports that Newcastle promised him more money or they would let him go. Harry Kane got dragged over the coals a few years ago after the club told him they would allow him to leave, went back on their word. They tried to make it sound like he skipped training. Victor Gyökeres this summer had a gentleman's agreement to leave. They then pulled that back. The player said, I'm not going to train. People tried to make him look like a criminal. The same's now happened to Alexander Isak. Where is the scrutiny when a football club says to a player, you are surplus to requirements? You are no good for us. Why is it why if Newcastle, and I'm using them as an example, not to hurt them or be nasty to them, but because they're involved in this conversation. When Longstaff went this summer, why has nobody said that's out of order? Because they want him gone. Why is it out of order when a player wants to go? It blows my mind. And even more frustratingly, and I think the biggest piece of hypocrisy, and I hope you're still here 9 minutes in, the biggest piece of hypocrisy is the majority of people on this platform, and I believe Simon Jordan as well, when Liverpool fans were complaining that Trent run his contract down, when they were telling Liverpool fans to get over it, don't hate on him, don't call him out, the biggest bugbear Liverpool fans had is they lost a 70, 80, 90, 100 million pound asset if he had a contract for free. So the money couldn't be reinvested into the team. That is a fair shout. The same pundits, by and large, telling Liverpool fans to stop moaning, to sit down, to pipe down, that their club's a disgrace for unsettling Alexander Isak, that you should pay through the nose for a player. The same people that have said that are saying that are the exact same individuals who said that they shouldn't moan that a player left for free. So, pardon my ignorance. Even when I think about it, I get confused. And maybe I didn't make sense to you all watching. Let me know in the comment section. Liverpool are bad for talking to a player, being upfront with Newcastle, they're talking to, they want him many, many weeks ago, submitting record-breaking bids. That's bad. Trent running his contract down and leaving for free, that's okay, don't moan about it. Am I missing something here? Player leaves for free, club get no money, that club, Liverpool, can't moan. Liverpool try and break a British transfer record to buy a player. Newcastle fans are allowed to moan, according to Simon Jordan, and Liverpool should feel ashamed of themselves. How on God's green earth does that make sense? This is another piece of media hypocrisy, where they sit down and they don't remember what they've said before. It's all about how do we generate noise around this? Well, loads of rivals of Liverpool are angry they're having a good summer, so let's go from the negative angle because it will probably get more support because everybody wants them to do a bad job and everybody wants them to foul right now. So they make up these agendas and they forget about things that they have previously said. And as a Manchester United fan, look, I want all these signings for Liverpool to fail. Actually, really funny, a few people have called me out on this channel the last few days. They're like, Terry, you said that we should be investigated. I can't believe you said that. I'm unsubscribing. If you couldn't understand the satire and the sarcasm in my voice, my advice is to touch grass. But even as a United fan, I listen to this breakdown and I'm thinking, one, you're talking out the other side of your mouth. The hypocrisy throughout stinks. And in the cold, hard light of day, they have lied about the actuality, the realness surrounding transfers. And it's not on. The hatred that they are demonstrating right now towards Liverpool Football Club is palpable, visible, clear, and in my personal opinion, absolutely disgraceful. As ever, I'd love to I can't wait to read some of all your comments, as many as I can anyway. Comments below. Please hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribing, and we will talk to all of you again soon. Peace.